Here's the video of a bunch of fat guys, which at first glance may seem like a weight loss ad. Andy Reid eats all he sees. Hey, Rodney's Rodney. Out Harry hits the sauce. Hey! Now, Boomer wants us to circle up the wagons. With that great big Ange. Coach Belichick. And the Hulkster brother. Let's throw in a couple more. Hey, look, it's Andre saying, nobody move. It's the Box Score Bunch. The Box Score Bunch. This is what we call the Box Score Bunch.
I don't know a lot about sports, but I can drink a lot of beer.
My motto is simple. C's get degrees.
Need a long, inappropriate hug? I'm your man.
I think I'm smarter than you, because I probably am.
Holy cow, it's the Box Score.
Welcome to the Box Score. I'm Brock here in Los Angeles in my mini man cave, and I'm talking life and lessons with the Danettes out in Milford, Connecticut. Let's get to it, shall we? Paulie, you tried to get Mark Cuban on the show today. What were his comments that prompted the booking?
He was talking to a couple reporters. He said on a treadmill the other day, he talked about the NFL being overexposed, oversaturated, and it kind of blew up and got a lot of attention.
Fritzy, what happened when you first tried to book him?
We got a note last night directly from Mark saying, I'm bored with all this NFL stuff, no thanks, something along those lines. And then we had some more communication through the morning, and I was just trying to explain to him, it's really become a hot topic today, what you said, and it'd be really timely to have you on. If you're up for reconsidering and you could fit it in your schedule, we'd love to pop you on. And then all of a sudden, without any warning, the phone rang, and it was Mark Cuban, so we had to make a quick decision to get him on as soon as possible. We were about to go to a break, so he was willing to hang on for a few minutes and then came on with us.
Wow. Well, Paulie, you went into the box to break down the finer points of booking a guest who might have reservations about coming on.
We told Mark, obviously we were going to lead and talk about this NFL topic that he brought up. And it would be disingenuous of Fritzy to go back and say, well, we'll touch on the NFL topic, then we'll talk about the Mavericks and the playoffs and da-da-da-da-da, when we wouldn't do that. I guarantee you if we had Mark Cuban on today, we'd probably do 10 or 12 minutes on this NFL topic and maybe something else about the NFL. So if we bait and switch him, then he may never come on again. Yeah, this is one that's really touchy because Fritzy has to be honest. His job is trying to book somebody, but not under false pretenses. And you don't want to tell a guy, hey, okay, we'll just touch on this topic, because then you're also putting Dan in a position where, well, I didn't agree to just touch on this little topic. So you would have to clear that with Dan first. It's just a slippery slope. And Fritzy does a good job of being forthcoming with people.
Fritzy, did you use any bribery?
I was considering it, but since we're talking to a billionaire here, I don't really know what I can give him that he doesn't already have. But he's been a great guest over the years. He's got a good relationship with Dan, and we decided to push it a little further instead of taking no for an answer, which we never like to do on the show. Once he said, I'm going to take a pass on board with the NFL topic, we nudged a few more times, and then next thing you know, the hotline rings, and he had a couple minutes to come on, so we were pumped. That's one of the big newsmakers of the day, so it was great that Mark came on.
Brock, if you don't mind, I'm going to do a little dramatic recreation for you, reenactment.
Certainly.
This is what happens when Fritzy has a surprise call that's newsy and he needs me to know without letting me know. So let's say the phone rang. He goes, Dan Patrick Show, he goes, Mark Cuban. He looks at me, which is actually a really good move by Fritzy. Fritzy gets my attention, gives me the big eyes. Mark Cuban on the line. You'll join us next segment? He's like repeating back to Mark what he's saying, but also letting everyone else in the room know Mark Cuban's coming on next segment. It saves him saying, and a hold, hey, that was Mark Cuban. It saves, at 30 seconds in the radio industry is everything.
Yeah, if it's one thing I've learned from these guys over the years, is, and I'm still struggling with it, as we all know, is trying to make things short and concise. And what better way than to kill two birds with one stone than respond to the guest out loud so they can hear exactly what's being said on both sides of the conversation, so we can just move forward instead of having to repeat it a second time.
Okay, well, let's take a look at what Cuban had to say.
Would you want to own an NFL team?
I don't think I can afford one.
But would you want to be part of an NFL?
I mean, I love the competition. I mean, had this been a few years back before I had 3 kids and, they got older like they are now, then, yeah, I would definitely have gone after it. But now, just a different point in my life. where there's not enough hours in the day.
Would you have made these comments if you had an NFL team?
No, I would have said them privately.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark's always a home run, and there's a long history of Dan getting him in lots of trouble. So you know that there's always going to be some fireworks when Mark comes on the show. However, really the more compelling storyline was happening off the air.
It was.
Absolutely. Since Cuban was booked late, that created some scrambling in the show, and DP didn't seem too happy.
It was a given we were doing Cuban. The question was, do we think we can fit in?
But you were doing what you're doing now, talking. And then I had to shut you up so I could tell you we're going Cuban now.
Right.
And if we go with the NFL, I don't want to have somebody on for 2 minutes.
Okay,
we could have him on tomorrow.
But there was no scenario where I thought that we should get rid of Mark Cuban for Dean Blandino.
You were. Okay. Am I missing something
all
here?
I wanted
Just to
to
be
do is-
fair.
There's just like.
You guys are arguing two
There's
different
like a
topics.
gap.
I just wanted to get back to the NFL in a timely fashion because they went out of their way to try to grab him out of a meeting in time for the end of the show.
All right.
That's all.
Okay.
What can I
But
tell
it
them?
takes you forever to get to the point where I was just trying to say Cuban. Mark Cuban.
Okay, but it was a little rough the way it came out.
You put your headphones on when I was talking to you.
I was upset.
All right, that's being an ass.
Yeah, that's behind the scenes at its best. I really wasn't looking forward to seeing this, going through it a second time, but I had a feeling this would be a topic on the box score today. I guess there was a miscommunication there, basically, and it does take me a while to get to the point. That's one thing I've always struggled with. But trying to get to the point here, for our purposes, I knew we wanted to have Mark Cuban, and he was the priority. I was trying to explain that we also can get Dean Blandino, who can do it in the last segment at 45, not bumping Cuban for Blandino. We could actually get both of them on live in back-to-back segments if there's enough time. He thought I was saying, debating whether we should not do Cuban and put Blandino on instead.
That clears that up.
So whatever the issue was, we decided, hey, let's catch up with Dean Blandino another time because we're probably going to run long with Cuban. And I thought Dan got a little too unnecessarily angry and nasty for my taste.
I was here for all of that, and I didn't hear it that way at all.
Yeah.
I kind of heard it. I heard it several different things. I heard you saying, okay, we'll do Cuban. Well, what am I supposed to tell the NFL?
Right. That was the other piece of the puzzle was if we're going to not do Blandino, who the head of NFL PR went out of his way to pull Dean Blandino out of a meeting to come on with us when we requested him. Will we have time in the last segment at 45 past the hour, not bumping Cuban, who was coming up next at 35.
I don't think anybody really
no,
suggested
no
bumping Cuban.
Then Dan said there's no time, and you came back to him, okay, what's
Right, I wanted to make sure I sent a response that we were all comfortable with to the head of the NFL PR as to why we asked for him, and now we're not going to put him on. That's all I wanted to do is to make sure I had it worded properly. Yeah.
I think the way that I read it, with the situation that was happening, is that Fritzy, I think, is. He's a little bit of an over-communicator at times and gets a little wordy, no offense, but that's sort of, and Dan, I think, was getting frustrated because we had about 2 minutes to figure this out, and all right, what are we going to do? And Todd was sort of obsessed with reading this email to Dan, and Dan was just like, I don't really care, dude. Like, I made the decision. We're doing Cuban. Tell them sorry, but we'll have to bump the guest, and that's it. And Todd was sort of belaboring the point a little bit, and I think Dan got a little frustrated with that. That's my take.
That's exactly what happened. We had gone a little long with Reggie Miller. We did not have the option anymore to do two guests. They were both newsy back to back with the time we had left in the show. We just didn't have the time. So as uncomfortable, it puts Fritzy in a position where he has to go back to the NFL and say, hey, false alarm, we don't need him here, which is tough for Todd because he's got to deal with these people every day, unlike the rest of us in the room. Right. But Todd has to know that in the moment when we're between 9 and noon Eastern, Dan doesn't care about that, and we got to pull the plug. But it's funny that Dan was upset. It'd be like when you go to a steakhouse and you order your appetizer and then your entree, and your appetizer and the entree show up almost back to back, and you're like, oh, well, you're not mad that you have it, you're mad at the timing of it.
See, I don't totally agree with you guys. I think Dan was a little upset too because he didn't really want to tell the NFL no. I mean, Todd is his mouthpiece, and he knows that's a hugely important relationship, and he knows we're going to need Blandino on Mondays, big time. So I think everyone was a little anxious about that.
Yeah, I thought
Dan was a little bit. Dan was taking a little bit out of you because I think he was frustrated because he didn't want to have to.
I just wanted to make sure we were, for lack of a better word, blowing off that opportunity in an appropriate professional way. And if we wanted to reschedule them, I wanted to kind of handle it all in that moment in one fell swoop in a tight little email. Sorry, we're running out of time. How about tomorrow? Or we'll catch up with you another day. Maybe I took a little too long explaining that, which I've been known to do, and that set Dan off as he was getting ready to start thinking of how he's going to interview Mark Cuban like in 30 seconds. So I get that, but I do think he got a little too
I think
worked
Dan had explained that that just tell them sorry that we can't do that, and then Todd sort of came back to it, and Dan said, tell them sorry we can't do that, and Todd sort of came back to it, and then he got smacked.
But it was interesting. Dan said you're choosing.
And then came back to it.
Dan said you're choosing this relationship over programming. Now that I thought was a little unfair because I didn't think Todd was trying to.
In the moment, you have to choose programming. If my mother calls and says her house is on fire, I'll say I'll call you in 15 minutes, Mom. That's the point. Is that I can't help her at this juncture. Right now, Dan has to focus on getting Mark Cuban because a bad Mark Cuban interview is not good for anybody. We got to get him back in that room, ready to go. Questions for Mark Cuban and get it going, and then we will deal with Dean Blandino in the NFL. Even 2 minutes after that starts.
Yeah, and I got the impression, and maybe I heard it wrong, that he thought that I thought that we should, maybe not do Mark Cuban or do Blandino instead of Cuban.
That was not,
that's part of what I was hearing, and maybe I misheard that. And I'm like, no, we definitely have to do Cuban here. It's just a matter of what to do with the vice president of officiating.
Okay, my takeaway from all this is that it's Fritzy's fault that the shrimp cocktail came when the cream spinach and the ribeye came. Is that okay? Never mind.
Exactly.
Okay, coming up, we'll play a little catfish, and then we'll read some Dan Nation tweets. All that and much more. Stick around. Welcome back to the box score. I hope Fritzy's feeling better. Our last segment was a brutal one. Guys, the boss had the tournament on his mind today and thought there might be a conspiracy theory in some of the matchups. Paulie, can you fill us in on this?
He truly believes, and he doesn't really have a problem with them doing it, that the NCAA committee that picks the tournament makes matchups based on drama. Like, they want Kentucky to play Louisville at some juncture. They want Ohio State to play Dayton in the first round. He believes that, and a lot of people don't.
Well, Fritzy, you jumped on the phones and booked a guest to talk about this topic. Who did you get, and why was DP questioning his credentials?
His name is Greg Shaheen, and he was for about 12, 13 years, he was like a big-time NCAA executive overseeing the whole selection committee. He was in on the meetings and all that. He started sending us emails and just pointers and topics and passion that he had about what he heard Dan saying, and he seemed to be not happy with some of the things Dan was saying, how he was portraying how the teams are picked. And then we all looked at each other like, instead of going back and forth with these emails, why don't we just invite the guy on? I think it would make for a great radio and TV to have them kind of go at it. And, they weren't so sure this guy was even for real because he was just sending all these emails and sounded kind of like a wacky dude. But we said, hey, let's put him on and let everybody hear it instead of just these private emails going on at my desk here.
Okay, man, Ty, let's see you try to explain who he was to the boss.
He kind of oversees the process, but it sounds like it's just the ADs and commissioners.
Are you being catfished here?
I don't think so.
You could be.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'm still hoping Jennifer Love Hewitt's going to send that package.
You and Paul George being catfished here. Jennifer Love Hewitt did not reach out to you. Nobody from her office reached out to you.
I'm going to believe in my mind that was actually her people.
All right. As Journey would sing, don't stop believing.
Is that my cue?
Yes.
Don't stop believing. I knew once he referred to catfish, talking about our guest, that somehow we were going to get Jennifer Love Hewitt back into it. And I'm still searching. I have it somewhere. The email, who I believe to be Jennifer Love Hewitt's publicist. She sent this nice note saying, "Oh, I heard you guys saying nice things about Jennifer and how talented and pretty she is. And we want to send a package to your to the man cave." And there we go. If only that was a real picture. And that's how the whole catfish thing.
That story was completely debunked a year ago by the I-Team. I don't know why we're still talking about it.
I still have this fantasy that...
What's debunking?
I'm still waiting. Every day I still check my mail hoping for some special package from Jennifer Love Hewitt. It still has not arrived, but all we can do is hold out hope.
We don't get enough run, though, out of the Jack White catfishing.
From the White Stripes.
Which is a serious story. Yeah, Jack White from the White Stripes. All of a sudden we got an email from one of his people, and that Dan had been talking about a movie that Jack was in called It Might Get Loud. I believe it was. And we heard him talking about it, and he wanted to send some stuff, and that led into this 6-month-long catfishing that was unbelievable, where Dan was going to go to a show. I think the Rock on Tours were playing in Brooklyn. Yeah. Dan was going to go. They were going to try to meet up at an Auburn football game. All of this crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden, one day, it just stopped. Jack White disappeared. And they're like, I don't think that was him. Not at all.
I'll tell you, Brock, I had one myself. Before catfishing was ever invented as a term, my first week on the show, Wayne Gretzky called in. He said it was Wayne Gretzky. I put him on hold and told Dan that Wayne Gretzky was on the line. And as he's on hold, there's about a 30-second buffer before Dan brought him in. I was like, what if it's not him? And I literally prayed. I was like, I hope this is Wayne Gretzky, because that would have been it. I would have been off. I was my first week on the show. I built up no equity with Dan. I was gone.
During that NCAA interview with Dan, we caught the front row in a giggle fest here. See, what's going on here?
Oh, man. Oh, we're watching the, what's the video? Who are those guys? Peele and Cakes or something.
Key and Peele. I think that's their name. Key and Peele, they were doing this funny bit about the East-West college football game with all these great, outrageous names. Seton hadn't seen it before. I've seen it a few times, and he was dying.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was a little too racy, though. I don't think we could have played it on the air, but damn, it was funny.
Oh, Demarius Latonian. Okay, McLovin, is that unprofessional of them?
Yeah. Oh, of course. I'm very disappointed. God forbid that anyone during this 3-hour show ever takes their mind off exactly what's going on.
There it goes.
If you ask me to quote,
that's a shot. That's a little up.
No. Fine. If you ask me to quote from the Steve Alford interview, you won't get much. Let's put it that way. Once in a while, your mind drifts or something comes up the internet. But you're following Twitter to find out what's going on with the show and the news. But once in a while, they'll send you a picture like the 10 sexiest stars of '90s dramedies.
Well, let me tell you,
am I the only one who was obsessed with the scary clown pictures in Staten Island today?
Oh yeah,
it was terrifying.
Well, the reason we looked up the Key and Peele thing was during a look-in. McLovin was taking shots. He goes, "I'm Smokey Silk," and he meant Silky Smooth. So I was like, Smokey Silk sounds like a Key and Peele character.
Yeah.
Smokey Silk.
Coming up, ever want to know something about Dan or the Danettes? We head to social media to answer your question. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Box Score. We're going to get into the Twitter sphere right now. You can follow me at SoCal Brock or the show at the Box Score Show. Fellas, it's time to get into the social media frame of mind. We asked Twitter if they had any questions for us, so let's see what they said. First tweet comes from Joe Santora. Which Danette is most likely to host his own sports radio show in the future? Paulie, let's have you go first here.
I would say none of the above. I don't think that's really what we do. I could see us doing something on occasion, like we've done podcasts and things like that, or maybe like, I don't know, an occasional type thing. But as far as a daily sports radio show, I don't think any of the four of us will ever do that.
I think Paul, followed by McLovin, and then after that, there's none of us.
Okay. I could see Paulie pulling that off. He takes the lead when we do the podcast, and he's got the knowledge and charisma where he would be able to do that.
That's what I was going to say. Actually, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
charisma.
What he said.
Charisma.
That's what I was going to say.
Next tweet is from Trell Boyd. If Dan was going to be stranded on an island and could only take 3 Danettes, which 3 would he take? McLovin, your thoughts?
Seton and Paulie, definitely. Then it's a toss-up with me and Fritzy.
I think he would take you. He'd be concerned about my health, and then
who would he leave home is what the question is.
Actually, there've been many scenarios where Fritzy's been left out in the cold because Dan won't even ask you because he knows you don't want to go to things at night.
And then I think we have the least in common other than a love of sport.
But he loves the scruples questions, though, and that's why he'll be tremendously entertained asking you questions like that. So that's why I think
Is that enough to get me
in.
over the top, though, and bump McLovin, though?
Believe it or not, I'm going to say I'm out, because if there's not a radio show going on, Dan doesn't have that much of a need for me. I mean, we're good friends and we get along real well. I consider him like an older brother, but if there's no radio show going on, he may not need me there.
Okay, let's get to the next one. Michael Kurdziel Jr. tweeted, what can't you live without? Bacon, beer, meat, or Dan's perfect hair? Seton, that's a tough call.
Not for me, beer. Done.
I'm going to take advantage of this ill-written question. I'm going to take bacon off and keep meat, and then I could still have bacon because bacon is a meat.
Very nice. Okay, finally, Justin tweeted, your decision to go with Dan to do this show, how much did you feel like you were gambling? Let's go to Fritzy.
Oh, that's a great question.
There's always risk with anything. I know whatever Dan was going to do was going to be extremely successful. It's just a matter of, you work hard through your career and then, you get to a place like the worldwide leader and you think there's nothing beyond that you've reached the pinnacle in your sports broadcasting career being part of the mothership. But he stated his case to all of us and what special things may lie ahead and convinced all of us he wanted to put his little all-star team together, and we were very flattered of all the people he's worked with over the years. He came to us, and we did it.
No, it was definitely a gamble. There was a huge one. Dude was leaving to start his own company and had like nothing, like zero to go on other than his name. And there was, when I was sort of considering it, at the time I was single, you know, I didn't have my son, I wasn't married, you know, so it was kind of like, all right, this is the perfect time to make that jump. Because I don't really have anything to risk, but there were a lot of people who were telling me I was making a huge mistake and that, you know, once you leave ESPN, you're not coming back because you're jumping to the enemy, someone told me, and that Dan is over, he's completely washed up, and you're making a huge mistake. No one cares. And I was happy to help prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, I agree. There was a moment my first couple days working back with Dan. I went from a 40-story high-rise in New York City with Sirius, has 3 full floors of infrastructure, to going to Dan's house where I was unpacking boxes and carrying chairs up 4 flights of stairs because it was just he and I and his dog. And I'm like, I don't feel like the infrastructure is here yet for success. So
you know, my moment like that actually was Dan brought me in, and it was like my first day, and Paulie and Dan are there, and they're showing me the studio, and Dan's like, "Well, here it is. Here's your computer." And it was like just a random desktop computer and sitting in front of a board, and I was like, "Oh, Holmes, like this isn't even close. Like we have a lot of work to do." Like, all right, this is where you're running it.
In the attic.
No, not even close.
We do have a bonus tweet, guys. Bob Edenbach wants to know how many crusty socks are under Fritzy's desk. Hashtag fire hazard.
Crusty socks.
It's so gross.
There may be some other crusty things under my desk. Socks, no, but there's some miscellaneous pieces of lingerie and things like that, but we don't have to get into right now. But socks were okay.
Very good. Okay, coming up, we'll wrap things up here in the box score. Stick around.
Sometimes while I'm watching the box score, after I take like a 15-minute fiesta and I wake up to see my Danettes, I feel a little bit better about myself. I feel more enlightened. These guys are so worldly when it comes in terms of the world of sports. I love the box score.
Okay. Welcome back to the box score. I'm here at the box score bar, up to my knees in beer and clear liquor. Reggie Miller, former Bruin, with some love for the Danettes there. You also had UCLA head coach Steve Alford on the show. Was that planned, Fritzy?
Totally coincidental. Reggie usually joins us on Mondays, but because of his college basketball schedule, sometimes he has to join us on a Tuesday or a Wednesday during the tournament. And we reached out to a number of coaches, including Alford, and just ended up working out that way that both Miller and Alford, with their UCLA connection, were part of the same show today.
Well, the boss forgot to give a spoiler alert before Reggie came on and kind of let the cat out of the bag involving the fate of a certain actor who was a friend of the show.
Josh Charles, one of the stars of The Good Wife, killed off. His character was killed off.
Spoiler alert.
Well, it's over. Is Reggie with us?
Reggie is standing by.
Oh, okay, sorry. Reggie Miller joining us on loan from TNT.
I so hate you right now.
Wait, you didn't know what happened in The Good Wife?
No, and I purpose. So listen to me. I've been hearing something huge happen on the show, and then I'm on. Why do you do that?
I'm sorry. I did not know you were a Good
do
Wife.
That on purpose, though.
I did not, Reg. I did not know you loved The Good Wife.
See, Dan has to understand that people don't watch TV the same way anymore. I mean, he should understand it since he just caught up with The Wire or whatever after 20 years. But he has to understand that people, you know, they don't watch things immediately when it happens, and people build up episodes and stuff like that. And so now, as a result of this, I've sort of taken on some shrapnel in that I was just catching up on Breaking Bad, and I've got 6 episodes left. And because Dan went on his anti-spoiler alert thing, I've had the ending of Breaking Bad sent to me no fewer than 1,000 times. I don't know why people are taking that out on me. Like, I wasn't defending the spoiler alert or somebody who believes in it very much. So I'm super pissed about that.
Well, let's go to Mr. Manners. McLovin, what is the official time limit on giving away TV spoilers?
It's 1 month for a cable series, 3 days for a network series. Like Good Wife is not on HBO, and it loses a lot of rights there.
Yes, but that time period is correct, but you still have to give a courtesy warning. You have to say, like, Brock, if I was saying, like, oh, wow, The Wire last week, what an ending. If you haven't seen it, earmuff it or turn the show off. Here's what happened.
For example,
even that 3-second pause is enough to give anyone the chance to turn the radio off or earmuff it.
For example, Brock, right now I could ruin the season ending of Girls, because Seton watches Girls, as do I, and he doesn't know that Adam dies in the last episode.
Don't do that.
Oh, low blow. But does it even matter on a show like Girls? Fritzy, who's on tomorrow?
Keeps getting worse.
Doc Emmerich will join us in our New York City man cave. We'll talk to Michigan State coach Tom Izzo, and Dean Blandino, vice president of officiating,
We may have to
will
bump
also
him.
be part of the show as well, but could be bumped again. Never know.
Okay, thanks for watching The Box Score. Tune in weekdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Audience Channel 239, right here on DirecTV. Cheers!
I don't know a lot about sports, but I can drink a lot of beer.
My motto is simple. C's get degrees.
Need a long, inappropriate hug? I'm your man.
I think I'm smarter than you because I probably am.
Hey, thanks for watching The Box Score. Holy cow!